Hey, it's David the Strong by Lead. Thanks for tuning in. I want to spend the next couple of minutes talking to you about nutrition and food and how they affect your emotional and mental well-being. I think many people nowadays understand that what they put in their mouth has an effect on their brain health, on the way their mind works, whether they're foggy, they're irritable, they have energy, they're motivated, they're emotional cravings. But I think a lot of people lack the direction and the clarity to really understand what foods are good for them and how they should eat certain foods. There is no shortage of information and knowledge and education. You can go on Google, you can search up foods for better brain health. You're going to get all sorts of results. Many of them are written by very reputable sources and dietitians. However, an article cannot address every single individual person and their specific situation. I'm hoping that this will give you a little bit more impetus to seek out your own solutions. Maybe you could reach out to me. We can start a conversation on what foods I think will be good for you and for better brain health. We're going to talk very briefly about how certain foods affect your mental and emotional well-being through one particular goal, and that is blood sugar management. The reason we're looking at blood sugar management is because foods that contain carbohydrates usually have the greatest effect on somebody's emotional and mental well-being. Many times when people are feeling emotional, depressed, scared, happy, joyful, they're probably going to turn to foods that are high in sugar and carbohydrates. More likely than not, they're going to turn to foods that are high in carbohydrates, salt, and fat, because this particular trifecta combination of nutrients bypasses the hunger signals in the body and completely lights up the hedonistic circuitry in the brain. Normally, evolutionarily speaking, the body really responds to foods that are high in sugars and fats because those nutrients are a little bit more difficult to come by in nature. So when the body does encounter them, it wants to reward you. However, during modern times, scientists have figured out how to combine these three. So it completely blows up our dopaminergic reward system, also known as the hedonistic food circuitry reward system in our brain, which really sets off our addiction alarms, prompting us to be more emotionally attached to food. And this could be problematic for people who want to lose weight. We're going to kind of discuss a couple of different strategies to combat that. We're not really going to talk about what specific foods should you eat for brain health. This is going to be geared a little bit more towards education and trying to use that education to manage your blood sugar. Now, blood sugar is necessary. You have a baseline amount of blood sugar or sugar in your blood. That's why it's called blood sugar. However, when you eat foods that contain carbohydrates, foods that contain complex carbohydrates, let's say sweet potatoes, brown rice, oats, quinoa, legumes, versus foods that are high in simple sugars like fruits, gummy bears, pastries, Snickers, and other candy bars, they're going to have different effects on your blood sugar. They're going to elevate your blood sugar to different magnitudes and with different intensities. Foods that are easy to digest, such as gummy bears, and have a lot of free sugar or added sugars, refined sugars, are going to spike your blood sugar up faster and with greater intensities. And as a result, the body will undergo some compensatory effects. In order for the body to bring down that blood sugar, your pancreas, which is an organ in your body, has to release a hormone called insulin. And insulin is an anabolic hormone, meaning growing hormone. You need it to survive, which is why type 1 diabetics are given exogenous insulin to inject into themselves, otherwise they will die. It's also a catch-22 because insulin in a healthy person acts on the liver, acts on the muscle, and the fat tissue by opening them up like a key in a lock to allow the sugar to go into those muscle tissues so that the blood sugar will go down. And this is really important because elevated blood sugar is toxic. When blood sugar is elevated for long periods of time, when you're continuously eating foods that are high in fats and carbohydrates, that's a recipe for gaining weight, and that's a recipe for lighting up that hedonistic reward system, which can send your emotional hormones into a tailspin. Your neurotransmitters, dopamine, adrenaline, serotonin, those types of things. When you eat foods that are high in carbohydrates, you eventually start to run into an imbalance. And maybe we're talking about this in more of a neurochemical level. That's usually what happens. You don't just get emotional for the sake of it. There is a biological reason as to why you get emotional with certain foods and why you tend to turn towards certain foods when you do get emotional. It's not just because you're depressed, you're angry, you're happy, or you're excited. I think there is a neurochemical reason as to why you turn towards certain foods. And I think once we can understand that, you'll be better off at combating those emotional cravings if you want to. If you want to lose weight, it will behoove you to learn how to combat those emotional cravings, especially if those battles, that lack of self-control, are self-inflicted, or you have colleagues who are knowingly, willingly sabotaging your progress. I think at the end of the day, though, most people are going to do whatever they want anyway, even if they want to achieve certain goals really badly. We're really trying to encourage impulse control and more conscientious decision making, especially when no one is around. If you're a client of mine, I want you to be more accountable to yourself when I'm not around. In the Air Force, we call that integrity first. One of the best ways to do that, I think, is to create some structure. And though many people believe structure to be restricting, the opposite is actually true. What do you think are the chances you may actually get more stressed out with a lack of structure? Probably higher, I would think, because without structure, there's less predictability. There's less order. The world is chaotic. We want order. So in other words, more freedom without structure, right? And this is quote unquote. But because you have more freedom, you're less compelled to follow a meal plan, obviously. I mean, we're working backwards here. And as a result, you'll be less likely to say no to inappropriate foods because you're like, oh, there's nothing really restricting me. So the short-term gain may be satisfaction of cravings. Let's say you are excited, you want a Snickers, you're eating a Snickers because you have the freedom and you're not confined to a specific meal plan or guidelines. You're going to feel better after eating the Snickers. But the long-term loss is weight gain. It's stalling and worse health. Maybe you'll even feel worse about yourself mentally and emotionally because you want to lose weight and you realize that eating a Snickers bar might not be serving in your best interest. Lack of structure also leads to reactiveness because you may be basing your decisions off of how you feel or what's going on around you. If your colleagues want you to go out to lunch at a sushi place and you don't have any structure, you're more likely to say yes. More structure leads to proactiveness for the opposite reasons. Because you're setting limits and boundaries, this can lead to better impulse control and delayed gratification. And research shows that one of the best predictors for future success is learning how to delay gratification, prioritizing and delaying gratification. Another great way to learn how to balance nutrition and your emotional health so you have better blood sugar control. I know we're talking a lot of strategic stuff here. We're not really getting technical or operational for a specific reason because, again, this is about personalization, learning how you tick, is questioning, is this food or meal within my plan? Will it help me get closer to my goals? If not, do I want to eat this? Is it a craving? Am I reacting emotionally to this? Or do I need this? Am I physically hungry? Let's say I skipped breakfast because I had a really crazy morning. Am I really hungry? Do I need to eat this? We're trying to delineate between emotional cravings and physical hunger. I think this is really important because if you're physically hungry, that means your body needs energy and calories. If you're emotionally craving, that might mean that something is going on in your brain. Your brain is either used to having certain foods, it's conditioned to eating certain foods, or you're just emotionally wound up and you want to eat food, not necessarily because your body needs that energy, but because your brain wants it. So it's not always about reacting to the situation. It may be more about being proactive about it so you can make better decisions in the future. So in other words, accountability. In accountability, a structure, I think, leads to better food choices, which leads to better blood sugar control, which leads to better mental and emotional well-being. And I think that is more the equated formulaic way of improving your mental and emotional well-being through nutrition. I know this was a pretty broad topic. It is a very broad topic. It's not something that I could talk about in just 10 minutes. However, I still hope this was of value to you. I hope you learned the value of creating structure within your day, within your nutritional framework. And I also hope you got some value out of learning how to ask the right questions, because reviewing and reflecting, trying to be proactive about the situation, so even if you make a poor decision right now, you can improve upon that poor decision and eventually start making better decisions later so you can see better results, I think are very important. I hope you saw value out of these two exercises and this talk in general. If you have questions or you don't have questions, please shoot them over to me at david@strongbylee.com. If you have anything else you would like to hear me talk about, shoot them over to me. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Until then, be proactive.